Hello, podcast listeners. Boy, oh boy, we're going to talk about road trip snacks. We're going to talk about the good friends Tucker and I are, and what would happen if you poop your pants. Enjoy this episode of JJ Meets World.
And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
You may have noticed, JJ, that on the table in front of you, there are 3 peanut butter cups.
I did.
Those are reserved for you if you want them.
Oh, really?
I ate the other 3 already because apparently when I had an adventure before we started recording. I stopped by our local Casey's for some soda pops, and I was going to get myself some peanut butter cups. And, you know, they've got the 2-packs and they've got the 4-packs.
They've got the regular.
Yep.
Then they've got the king size.
Right.
And now they're really indulging the fatty fats.
Yeah. They've got a 6-pack. And I wish I could say, oh, in that moment, I thought I should share this with my friend JJ. But no, I just thought, I'm going to eat 6 today instead of my usual 4. Right. Right. That was the thought. And as I was unwrapping it and I look at all 6 of them like lined up on this paper canoe that they come in, I felt like I was looking at an image of myself. Like, are you about to eat 6 of these right now and a Pepsi? So I thought I'm going to give 3 of them to my friend JJ, who, yeah.
Now let me explain my situation. I walk into the studio and we're having a conversation about my work, and I notice on the table there are 3 peanut butter cups. And I think to myself, what a jerk move to put these out there, because you weren't immediate with your, I'd like to offer you some delicious Reese's peanut butter cups. It's a wonderful blend of chocolate and peanut butter in a serrated cup form. And then I thought, is this a trap? Because if we started trapping people like bears by putting a little bit of snack and then I fall into a pit or I get caught up in a net, I would be in a net right now because I wanted to reach over and grab one of these.
You can grab more than one if you want.
I can have up to 3.
You can have all 3. They're yours to do with. They're yours to dispense of however you want to. That falls within the laws of God and man.
Let me explain something to you about road trips, just real quick.
Okay.
I'm married, now I'm a married
right.
man.
Yes, correct.
I'm a married man.
I remember
And
that, yes.
My wife and I have differing opinions on road snacks, okay? To me, first of all, I don't like to stop if I don't have to. So I'm a person who says, if I leave Fargo, North Dakota, I'd like to drive 220 miles straight to get to Minneapolis or Bismarck, respectively. Jill's the type of person who's like, my family likes to have lunch in Fergus Falls. Fergus Falls? You get 45 minutes away and then you stop? And then sometimes, we stop at the Depot, which is this kind of, homeware. Like, they sell really fancy knives, but then they also sell like wood that says like, it's wine day sometime and other stuff like that. So I don't like that. I don't like stopping. So
imagine you at the beginning of the Oregon Trail, like, what do you mean 6 months?
Yeah, I can do it in a day. I can do it in 2 days. The oxen are going to die. We're all going to get cholera. I'm going to bury one of you. So road snacks, when it comes to Jill and I, we just differ in opinion on them, because I like things like, if I need something salty, I need something sweet. I like to get like 2 pops, and sometimes I'll get a fountain soda and then a bottle soda, and when I'm half done with the fountain, I'll pour the bottle in.
Plenty of ice left, usually.
Right. Yep. I'm going to make use of that delightful ice.
Yeah, it keeps it nice and cool for longer.
Recently, we drove to the Twin Cities, a 3.5-hour drive, and we leave in the morning. And here's the other thing, too. I'm not a morning like drive-through breakfast guy. I just don't find any of those to be satisfying. Even after you can go back and listen to our episode, the one we did right before the lockdown for the pandemic, where we tasted all of the Hardee's or the Wendy's breakfast sandwiches.
Yeah.
That was a good episode.
My stomach hurt that day. I mean, I didn't even taste them. I was too sick to, I think. It was just you, Britta.
Yeah.
Was it Phil? No, just you and Britta.
Just Britta and I, yeah.
Yeah.
Because she had some real opinions when it came to like, well, the cheese isn't quite. Anyway, listen to that episode. Why am I telling you about it?
Really, if we were to ever to do that, run it back and do it right, I think we do it in the drive-through the moment we drive away, right? So that you're getting it hot and fresh out the kitchen. Anyways, that's neither here
I'm
nor
a
there.
croissant. I mean, if I'm gonna have something, it's a croissant-wich from Burger King. Even though the Burger King near my house. This is a quick side story. The Burger King nearest to my house, which I used to bike to as a kid, is being torn down eventually. So the strip mall that held a Kmart the Kmart's been torn down. They've let the parking lot, like there are trees growing in the middle of the thing.
Are there
at this
plans
point.
for the land?
Yeah, they're going to turn it into some low-income elderly housing and then like a mix work and live type space, AKA the most boring idea ever for that spot that's right off the interstate. It's the first exit into North Dakota. At least put a Target back there where the Kmart used to be, right on top of the bones. So this thing is slated to be demolished at some time. And I think it's sort of a ticking time bomb of like, okay, well, we'll demolish it when the trucks are available. So you don't go to that Burger King anymore, because if you thought they didn't give a crap before, they now are to the point of where like, we're not even cleaning at night, because what's the point? What's the point of mopping up the grease? It's just going to get demolished and they're going to tear it down.
That are still in effect until then.
And I don't think they're shipping fresh food over there too. They're like, just use up what you got. And when you run out of onion rings, just say sold out.
Is that what all the Burger Kings in town are like? Because the one next to me, they don't give a fuck.
Are we talking about the one on 19th Avenue?
They could give two shits about, oh, do you not like your food? I don't fucking care. Go fuck yourself.
You know what I'm surprised at? Do you know that Burger King like was part of a national scandal? Have I ever talked to you about this?
Yeah, was this like the manager and stuff?
The manager
like,
who was told, like, answer the phone, they're like, hi, I'm a cop, and someone was there, and they stripped down an underage female employee and said, like, make her shake because with a cell phone that she stole. That's messed up. You should look that up. And then there's a movie about it called Compliance. And when you see the little dots on like the Dateline that they did about it, and you're like, wait a minute, Fargo, North Dakota, there's one good Burger King left in Fargo, North Dakota, including West Fargo and Moorhead. And it's the newest Burger King, and it's on 52nd Avenue South. That Burger King, they put all the effort into it. They're not putting handwritten paper signs on top of the menu. That is the only good Burger King left in town. It literally is the Burger King. It's the king of Burger Kings. Back to my road trip story. So Jill has me stop at McDonald's because she likes a sausage, egg, and cheese McMuffin. She likes the hash browns, and she gets the sugar-free vanilla cappuccino because she has diabetes. So we get this. I don't want anything, but I know I'm going to get peckish at some point. So I make an uncharacteristic stop in Alexandria, Minnesota, which is the midway point between Fargo and Minneapolis. And I stop at just a gas station, nothing special about this place. And I said, you know what? I had a friend of mine at work who's been just raving about these spicy, sweet, chili Doritos. They're the Doritos that come in the purple bag. So not the blue, not the red, the purple bag. And I decide I'm going to get one of these 6-pack of Reese's. That sounds delightful to me. And I'm going to get a big Diet Coke, and I'm going to get another big Diet Coke because Daddy's on vacation. It's Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
So the first thing we do is we start off back on our journey. And I open this Reese's, and I realize it's one thing for me to be distracted driving and opening 2 Reese's cups, right? Because you got to pull the paper off. If I'm going to manage 6,
You're probably on your phone.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm adjusting the radio at the time, and I'm also like, is that a sliver? So I tell Jill, would you please open this and give me a peanut butter cup? So she opens it and she gives me a peanut butter cup, but it's still wrapped in the cup. And I was like, would you please remove the wrapping? And so she does, and she's like, do you want me to put it in your hand? And I'm like, actually, no, because I don't want it to melt in my hand. So would you put it in my mouth? And so thank you. And so I finish it, and I'm like, more, please. And so she does like another one. And when she gets to the third, she's like, I'm not going to do this for all of these. And I said, well, now we're in a real situation because the 6-pack Reese's pack is so much deeper than a regular.
Yeah.
So now we're talking about.
They're not stacked on top of each other.
No.
You could measure things with this.
Right. I mean, it's got to be at least 18 inches long. Right. And if you just joined our podcast, we are talking about Reese's peanut butter cups in the super size.
They just tuned in on the radio. Yep.
You know, like if you just like if your phone just sunk to your car to your Bluetooth and there's a passenger listening now.
It decided to jump 8 minutes in.
Right. Well, I just don't want to be like, you know, if they're like, yeah, it's 18 inches and like I shouldn't be handling it in the car. I just don't want there to be any confusion about what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Because my genitals are also 18 inches long.
Yeah.
You know, just while we're at it.
Right.
The balls. They hang low. So
Truck nuts. JJ's got some truck nuts.
To the point of like, you know, the mesh that you have in your swimsuits, I have to put that in all my pants and shorts to make sure. Okay. So the problem is now they're so far at the back end of this thing that I would have to tip the Reese's package so far to be able to get gravity to send these things out, and then they'd slosh back to the end. It doesn't make sense. So I explained to her that you're going to have to continually feed me.
Nope.
The rest.
Here's the reason why you're going to feed me like I'm
you want me
Jabba
to
the
put
Hutt.
this car into the ditch?
So, like, do you want me to mop your brow at the same
I mean,
time?
sometimes I think, wouldn't that be nice? So I finally finish all my Reese's, and I'm like, but now I'm full, so I don't need any more snacks. Jill starts watching stuff on TikTok, and I'm listening to whatever we've got playing through Spotify. Probably the original cast recording of Les Mis. So I'm probably the master of the house, keeper of the zoo, ready to relieve them of a sou or two. And I decided, you know what I want? I want to try these Doritos that Tyler has been talking about so much.
That's right. You set them up at the beginning of the story,
Right.
and I have since forgotten about them.
What's
but
the
they've
color
now
of the bag?
reemerged.
What's the color of the bag?
Purple.
Purple. It's a purple bag.
Yeah. And a friend told you about them.
Friend at work told me. So I pop open these Doritos and I take one bite, and you know that scene in Ratatouille where the food critic tastes the ratatouille and then it zooms in real quick on his eye and it goes back to his childhood and like it's amazing. That's how I feel when I try these spicy chili sweet Doritos. Now, they are spicy, but not spicy enough that I think it would keep the regular person away from them. They're sweet, but not so sweet that it's going to give you gut rot. And they're chili because I assume there's chilies, not chili like the delicious football game accompaniment like snack,
Right.
So I have like two of these things, and all of a sudden Jill's nose twitches a little bit, and she goes, "Oh my God, what are you eating? Farts?" And I said, "What?" And she's like, "Those smell so," and she's like, "Ugh, ugh, ugh." And I was like, "They're not that bad. Like, they're delicious. They're wonderful." And so she rolls down the window on the interstate. She rolls down the window and she's like, "They smell so bad." And so I have only had a chance to have like 3 chips, and I have to like fold these things. And so I'm like, I'm going to put them in the back, and she takes them and she whips them and gets them all the way to the trunk part of the SUV. So there's no chance, even if she falls asleep and has a nap, there's no chance I'm going to be able to eat these chips.
She's definitely not putting them in your mouth for you.
Oh, no. Also, here's a pro tip. The spicy chili sweet Doritos leave more spice and remnants on your fingers than Cheetos ever has for me.
Yeah.
So
Should you tap them? Should you shake them?
no,
Each
no.
one before?
And, like it's well bonded to the chip, but I think the pressure you put on to bring it to your mouth,
Got it.
and maybe it makes you salivate so much that a little bit of moisture is getting on your finger on a regular basis. But it's the type of thing where, you know, you gotta, do that. And then of course, now it's even worse because now you've got a moisture agent on your fingers that's now combining to this stuff.
One time, Dad and I drove. This was the last time Dad and I drove together, like to Kentucky. The last time, right? I will be like, you know, we're gonna, you know, we're
Thanks,
not doing
Dad.
because of this one moment. Because he had a different car than he does now, obviously, but it had enough room in the back that you can make a little bed. And so that's what we did, was like we'd take turns driving, and if one of us needed a rest, we'd lay back there. And I was resting back there at one point. And like every few minutes, I would smell this like waft over me of just this pungent gross that at first I thought was a fart. But on like the 6th time, I was like, what the fuck am I smelling? And I had like headphones in and stuff, so I couldn't hear what's going on. Take the headphones out and I look up to the front. Dad had packed this giant Tupperware full of just chunks of salami. Just like, I think he went and took an entire log
Like a log,
and just diced it up into random chunks and just threw it into this Tupperware. And he was just popping that open and popping them in like candy and then popping it back close. And so what I was getting was this like processed meat that's been sitting in this car in this Tupperware, maybe for a day or two. Who knows how long ago he had prepped it. And every time he would pop it open, it would completely fill the car. And it was making me sick. And I had to like go, hey, would it be okay if we didn't do this at all? Because I almost threw up like 20 times.
Yeah. That sounds awful.
Yeah.
Now, that being said, I used to road trip with a guy named Dustin, and Dustin loved beef jerky. But what he'd do is he'd get beef jerky, the kind in a bag, and he'd open the whole bag and then smush it so that all of the beef jerky air
Okay.
would waft everywhere. And then, because he just didn't care about anyone but himself, he'd leave the bag in the car. So the next morning you'd open it up and you go, whoa!
What's the most annoying and obnoxious way I could do this?
Right. And it's almost like it was a sixth sense for him. Like he's like, hey, I don't have to put any thought process into how to make my traveling companions miserable, but here it is. So it makes me think like what would have been like if Dustin and your dad were in the car with this salami. I also love this too. I love how your dad doesn't just pop open the lid and let's leave it open while until he's had enough snack to feed himself.
Right.
Because the first time I heard you tell this story, you made it sound like he pops it open, grabs the snack, pops it in his mouth, shuts the container, and then like 30 seconds goes by, opens the container.
Yeah.
And so it's constantly
It's a
like
constant
being
process.
opened and shut and open and shut.
Yeah.
Open and shut, which is like, who do you think you're doing? I also noticed like your dad does this thing too, where like he'll take a bite of something and then, like wipe his hands, but then he'll go and take like another bite. He's the type of guy who's like, I'm only going to have one piece of pizza from the leftover pizza in the fridge.
Yep.
And he grabs it and he eats it. And then he goes back to the fridge and grabs another piece of pizza. It's like, just grab 4 pieces of pizza.
Right.
You know how hungry you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I myself shake my food without even thinking about it before I eat it.
Oh, yeah.
So like Brad Delzer was the first person to ever point this out to me. We were just at
Because he was just watching your food all the time.
well, yeah.
Because he was wondering if maybe there's something for him, like the way a dog does.
It's a good thing I know he doesn't listen to this. He never would. But no, he said, why do you bounce your food? And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, you bounce your food. Do you not know this? Every time you're going to eat anything, it's me specifically, if it's a chip, if it's a burger, if it's a spoonful of pudding, I do this thing where I kind of like bounce it and shake it a little bit before eating it. And I had never noticed that I do it before. And I think what I was doing was just it is like a subconscious shaking it off, making sure there's nothing I don't want there, right? Or nothing loose is going to come up when I like bite into it. But I have also since discovered, and I think this is something to do with anxiety on some level, is that the speed at which I eat a burger or sandwich changes drastically if the burger or sandwich is wrapped in a napkin. So if I'm just raw dogging one of those without a napkin like wrapped around it, I try to eat it as fast as I can. I'm not doing anything else until this is gone, right? And I usually kind of feel like I got to do this right now. I'm not supposed to be doing anything else. This is messy and in a state of being eaten. I need to finish it. But when I like wrap it in like a full napkin, I'll sit there forever and like slowly eat at it. And it's some weird like psychological tick that I have. So I think it might be like a texture thing. Like my hands when they're touching food for me, that's like, oh, that's a messy thing that you're supposed to devour and not hold on to for very long, right? But I think maybe I'm like keeping it clean or something in the wrapped thing and securing it more so that I know I'm not worried about things falling off of it or something. I have no idea.
I mean, I don't know what your relationship is to infants.
I'm good.
But that's really the like rule of thumb with an infant. If you have a naked baby running around, the odds of you getting poop on your carpeting is much greater than if it's in a diaper.
You know, I have heard that said before. That's right.
Right? I believe it was Plato who came up with the diaper conundrum.
Yep. That's right.
Speaking of Play-Doh, it's time to mention our sponsor for this episode. We're really excited because we've had all these sponsors come on, and we'd like to welcome Play-Doh to be here. Not Play-Doh, D-O-H, like that other consumer, but the original Play-Doh. So Play-Doh is a substance that you can use if you're fixing a car, if you are trying to trap a wild animal, or you maybe just want to amuse an adult for several hours. What Play-Doh is a simple substance that allows you to create whatever is in your mind's eye right in front of you, skill notwithstanding. So if you want Play-Doh, if you want the original Play-Doh, the stuff that our forefathers mention in the Constitution, all you have to do is go to Playdough.com, PLAIDOUGH.com. Back to the pod. I think that I'm a pretty easy person to please on most days. You know, I mean, it's the simple things in life that bring me joy, right? The other day, I put together a rocking chair and sat out on my porch for hours, just rocking back and forth, really enjoying what I was doing. And I will mention this. This is made out of polywood. Are you familiar with polywood?
No.
So polywood is like a hard plastic like board that mimics wood, and a lot of them are made from recycled plastic bottles. So it's a reduce, reuse, recycle type idea, and they come in all these different colors. It's very likely you've sat on furniture made out of polywood, and it's nice because it's the same color the whole way through, so there's no maintenance. You don't have to restain it, and it's it's completely water. It's not permeable at all. It's plastic. They're awesome. So I bought this rocking chair at Costco that you assemble yourself, and they made it really easy where you've got a back, you've got the arms, you've got a seat, and then you've got the chunks that lead down to the rockers, and they are all put slot A into hole B. Really easy, right? So the idea is that assemble me in 15 minutes. Their proportions were off. And this slot, the chunk in A, was too wide to fit into the slot B. And I looked at this and I'm like, is this wrong? Do I need to let it sit in the sun so it's a little more malleable? Like, what's going on? So I went on a rabbit hole, and thank God for things like Reddit and YouTube, because I found a bunch of people who said, I bought this at Costco and the dimensions are off. And and there's one guy who's like, you can still make it, but the slot won't go into the slot. You just screw, through this long area instead. And I said, well, no, because it needs to go in there so you have the sturdiness. Mm-hmm. As a man of 250 plus pounds, I need to know I'm sitting on something sturdy, because as we know from that faithful edition of JJ Meets World,
my favorite episode.
If I sit down in the chair,
episode. I'm gonna listen to it today just to put a smile on my face.
And the chair disintegrates below you. It's not a great moment. So I went and got a chisel from my shed and a rubber mallet, and I made these things a little bit bigger. This is no handyman extraordinaire, right? It's 2 taps with the chisel where the length I want it to be, 2 on the side, knock it out. Now they fit together perfectly. Went back to Costco the next time and looked at it. Their chair was to the wrong proportions. They're like one that you could sit on. Wrong proportions. And it was so bad that they had put it together without them fitting in there. And I'm looking at it, and someone was looking at it. I go, hey, just so you know, I bought this unit, and I just want to let you know this. The guy looked at me like I was crazy. Like I might as well have had a long beard and been like, taste my fingernails. Just didn't want to hear what I was saying at all. And here I am trying to help them. Being like, I know you want to make this purchase. This would look great on your porch. But slot A, or like nub A and slot B, do not fit together. I'm telling you this right now. I'm trying to save you hours of poor situations. That's not where I'm going with this. I'm just saying that's an example of the simple things in life that I enjoy. Went out to eat at the Olive Garden the other day with previous guest Madison Quinn. Okay. So I'm out there with Madison, and we sit down, and Madison has decided that he's going to order the shrimp scampi. He says shrimp scampi to Brody, our waiter. Comes to me, and I said, I'm going to have the seafood Alfredo, because I'm like, Alfredo sauce sounds really good. You know, I like that creamy sauce.
Mm-hmm.
Seafood, I like shrimp. I like scallops. Sounds good. Brody walks away. Brody comes back later, and he's like, all right, and the scampi, and he puts it in front of Madison. He goes, oh, this is JJ's. I didn't order scampi. Now, Brody looks at him, and then he looks at me, and I look at Brody, and then I look at him, because Brody and I both know the dude ordered scampi. And then he puts the Alfredo in front of me, and he goes, and Brody's like, and Madison's like, I ordered scampi. Are you sure? And I'm like, yeah. In fact, I noted it to myself because I was like, who orders scampi?
I mean, I would. I like shrimp scampi.
No one orders shrimp scampi when Alfredo looks so delicious.
Oh, I would take scampi over Alfredo. Yeah.
So
Alfredo's low on my list.
So you would have done what I did, which was
Trade.
I gave him my meal, and then I took his shrimp scampi.
Why, JJ, why did you not let the young man live the consequences of his actions?
Because sometimes I like to think to myself, you know, if I can change the world for just one person, then my time on this planet has been worthwhile. I mean, let's put this scenario together. He has the scampi, which is very oily, very oil based.
Yeah. It's delicious.
And it
Buttery,
causes his
garlicky.
stomach to like maybe be a little upset on his way home. And before you know it, all of a sudden he's got to go to the bathroom. So he stops at a gas station.
This was
the
a
gas
scenario
station,
he gamed out for you? Or
no, this is one I'm coming. This is going through my mind as I'm like, you can have my Alfredo. The gas station's being robbed. And because he's a good person, he gets in the line of fire of a young woman who's being shot at, and he takes a bullet to the head. Doesn't kill him, but it erases a chunk of his memory. And so now he doesn't remember his parents. He doesn't remember what his job is. He knows like how to breathe, and he knows like regular things like, oh, this is a phone and I make calls on it, but he doesn't remember any of the things that make him him.
And all he can understand are the words shrimp scampi.
Shrimp
It's
scampi.
the only words he says.
In fact, he thinks his name is Shrimp
He's
Scampi.
Locked into that forever.
Mr. Scampi, is there a Mr. Scampi here?
Yep, first in the medical textbooks.
And I'd be like, Shrimp, what's up? So I stopped that from happening. That exact scenario by trading my meal.
You know, I can't argue against the idea that you did collapse the wave function of that particular potential future. That's true.
Yeah.
But there are other potentials that could have happened that thankfully didn't, right? I mean, maybe someone had poisoned the Alfredo sauce in an attempt to assassinate you.
Me.
And instead of that, it went to him, and you just got the delicious buttery. How was your shrimp scampi?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. And like, and I'll be honest, I enjoy scampi as well, right? I do like chicken, shrimp, even vegetarian scampi. But what I really wanted,
go ahead.
what I really wanted was something to dip my breadsticks in. And scampi does not have a sauce similar to Alfredo. Like what I wanted was to dip it in the sauce, pull it away, not have any drippies, and then be able to put it into my face gullet.
I'm having trouble figuring out. So what did he actually want to order?
Shrimp Alfredo.
Shrimp Alfredo.
And he said scampi instead.
Okay, so I was trying to figure out how he got from seafood Alfredo to shrimp scampi or vice versa.
Right. He had wanted shrimp Alfredo, but he said shrimp scampi.
You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of that scene in The Sopranos when Junior Soprano is hanging out in his lawyer's office with all his goons, and someone delivers sandwiches to them. And the guy's like, hey, who ordered the eggs and hot peppers? And it went to this guy. And Junior goes, I should have got that. Like, that's what happened, I think.
Yep.
I think Madison saw what you had, coveted it, and it was like, that my idea.
Yep.
and he took it that way.
There's
I'm
also,
just kidding, Madison.
There's a great scene, and remember in the last episode we were talking about Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. There's a great scene where Dewey and another band member are walking away after a show, and he's like, "Hey Carl, I like your girl better than mine. Let's trade." And he goes, "But Dewey, this is my wife." And he goes, "That doesn't matter to me." And so he trades and then hands over his girl, and he goes, "Hi." I like your girl better than mine. Let's trade. Well, another situation happened like this. So, and I guess what I'm trying to get here, I'm not that picky when it comes down to like most foods. I avoid mustard and mayonnaise, but luckily, you know, like if someone was like, here's who ordered the egg and hot peppers, that sandwich probably has some kind of mayonnaise saladaise on it, I'm guessing, because egg needs some kind of a binding agent.
I
on
would
a bread.
definitely never order an egg and peppers sandwich, especially for delivery. I just wouldn't do that.
You never?
No, not once. No.
Interesting. I mean, I'm not going to say never because who knows.
This-
And I guess if they were like a fried or scrambled egg, maybe. I'm guessing they took hard-boiled eggs and like chopped them up.
I asked you recently, what is the best deli in town?
Right.
And you got back to me the next day and you said there isn't one. There isn't a good one.
Yeah.
There are things that classify as delis. And that day, when you texted me that, at one point of the day, I looked at my text threads, and the top 3 messages were from the 3 men with J's that I know. You, Jason Jacobson, and Jacob Harchie had all texted me that day. The top one was from Jason Jacobson, and it was a note about a video change he wanted me to make. Yours was about how there are no good delis in Fargo, and Jake's was from 4 a.m. saying, I know it's late, but I have an idea. I need to tell you about it.
Oh.
And I was like, this perfectly contextualizes my relationship with all 3 of these men. And if we even had a stellar deli, I still probably wouldn't order an egg and pepper sandwich from them. If I'm getting a sandwich, it's going to be either some sort of an Italian sub, or it's going to be some kind of a turkey that's like got sun-dried tomatoes on it or something.
Do you know those
In
three?
a hoagie.
Those 3 men share a deli dream.
Really.
Those 3 men that you talked about, Jason, Jacob, and myself.
Why don't the 3 of you make it happen?
So
I told Jason the other day that you were made to be like the face of like a deli somewhere.
Right, where I'm wearing a white apron every day.
And it's got to be like some person who can do an old timey illustration that combines you, like a maitre d' and a suckling pig, like into the same image.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, JJ, come eat my meats, you would make it happen.
First of all, my deli would have a wooden barrel filled with pickles. I know you're not a pickle guy, but like
I celebrate
there's
the
that
inclusion of
iconic,
it. Yeah.
look. And the top of it would be a checkerboard, so that if a couple old guys want to hang out there and play checkers on top of the pickle barrel,
of the pickles.
yeah, on top of the pickle barrel. So there was a Baskin Robbins that was on South University Drive that was at the end of a strip mall where there's a liquor store at one end and it was an ice cream store at the other. And they were closing. And it had more space than you'd imagine because they had a big freezer space in the back because it's an ice cream store. You need to have a lot of freezer space at an ice cream store. And I was telling Jason Jacobson one day about how I want to open a deli in Fargo, and this would be the perfect spot for it because there's all that housing. It's right on a major thoroughfare. And he said, well, what's the diner like? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, because I always thought like we need something like this because Jason's very well traveled. And so he stopped at places. And so I was thinking more New York style deli, but he was right where he goes, no, really embrace the fact that like it's a little bit of everything. There's a taste of New York. There's a taste of the West Coast. There's a taste of the South. It's got all these things rolled into one. And he came up with the great idea, which was the University Deli. And so the University Deli would be the type of place where you could come and not only get sandwiches, but the meat and the cheeses are so good. And they're not just like Mrs. Gary's or something like that, that you could buy the meat and cheese by the pound. So if you come in, you could buy long baguettes from us, like hoagie style baguettes. And so if you wanted to like take it home and assemble your own sandwiches over the week, you could, or we'd make the sandwich for you right then and there. We also would have homemade butter. And that'd be a thing like for sandwiches, like where people are like, I want homemade butter on my sandwich. So where Jake comes into the mix is we said, listen, we want to open this deli. I mean, it was like a 2-hour drive home from a Linebender show, and we came up with everything we needed, including the fact that everything gets wrapped in white paper so you can eat the sandwich right out of the paper, right? And so
the way I like it, apparently.
the way you like it. So here's the thing. We were like, I don't want to give up my day job, and he didn't want to give up his day job. So who are we going to trust to run our deli? And we're like, Jacob Harchie. Jacob Harchie would be the guy that we would convince to come in and run our entire deli operation. And he'd turn on the lights in the morning and he'd turn them off on his way home at night. And University Deli was a great idea. And then at one point, right next to my favorite butcher shop in town, Prime Cut Meats, the other half of the building came open. I said, oh, this would be the perfect spot to open University Deli. First of all, it's still on University Drive. Secondly, you could get the meat from Prime Cut Meats because they were smoking and doing their own stuff. You could have the cheeses. Everything would be right there. And it would be like old and have wooden stuff, like wooden, look inside. It'd be great. Now it's a smoke shop. And not like a fun, like, oh, I'm smoking meats. No, it's like a place you go to get like your Juul, like
Your vape shop.
vape stuff.
shop.
Yeah. And it's the type of place that says lowest legal price on cigarettes in the state. And so those three men had a dream of opening a deli. And if you want to know my opinion on the deli situation in Fargo, North Dakota, it's abysmal. There's no place I can go to get what I would consider like a really great Reuben, right? I want like piled high pastrami. I want a really nice, like marble rye bread.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a place like that. The closest we've got, which I recommend to you, is the Cracked Pepper, which is this little kind of hole in the wall sandwich shop that is on 17th Avenue, just west of the Home Depot. It's a giant like apartment building that on the main area has got like a bunch of shops. The Cracked Pepper, it's the best like from scratch sandwich shop I think in Fargo right now.
Okay.
Because you can get things like they've got cucumbers and Brussels sprouts and like they've got a bunch of different spreads that you can put on their sandwiches.
I mean, are things like made to order so you can build it yourself? Like these are the things I want.
Yeah. And it's by no means a replacement for like a New York deli. Oh my God, in Chicago, there are like 5 places I would go all the time. Have you ever had a sandwich that's dipped, like a Chicago dip sandwich, where they literally dip it in the grease that like the meat's been marinating in? Oh.
When I used to be on the poker tour, there were a couple of like resorts that we'd stay at that would have a deli in the spot. And a few of those were bangers. They were awesome. They were phenomenal delis. And so like that would be the one place I would eat. So if I had like a downtown deli that I could hit Monday through Friday for like a sandwich, I would do that all the time. We do have a sandwich shop, Smiling Moose. But
Blech.
You don't like Smiling Moose?
No.
See, I do like it, but I also don't. It's a restaurant. It's not like the vibe of what I'm looking for, right?
I think to me, like the problem with the Smiling Moose is nothing there tastes fresh. It tastes like it's been prepackaged somewhere else and has been delivered there. They use shredded lettuce. Shredded lettuce has no place on anything but a taco. It's the only place shredded lettuce. If you ever go somewhere and like, oh, I'll have the salad. See, to me, a grinder shouldn't have lettuce on it either.
I don't really like grinders in the first place.
Just like, period?
I shouldn't say I don't like them. I would never order it.
Grinders are the type of sandwich where it's halfway through making the sandwich. You're like, oh, I wish I had a different type of sandwich.
I wish I hadn't ordered this. I got one from Taco Shop downtown like a few months ago. And it was as though they took a loaf of bread, scooped a little bit out of it, put their slurry meat sauce in it, and that was my meal. And I was like, the fuck is this shit?
Yeah, I don't like that. Also, taco shops. Why are you painting your shop black?
Yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense to me. No. Why are you painting the outside of your building black? It has nothing to do with tacos, and in all honesty, it makes you disappear into the night.
I want a return to the look from like 1995.
Those like bright hyper colors and like very not maroon, but it's good. It's good kind of stuff.
Yeah, very good.
I recently started working. I'm producing another podcast right now.
Ooh, what are you making?
It's called The Home Run Porch.
Ooh.
And I'm not in it. I'm just producing it. That's all I'm doing. And by producing, I mean like, I'm literally like, they were doing a video aspect. So like, I'm the one who's dressing the set. I'm deciding on like intros, like nice. Writing. It's about baseball. So I am literally out of my little league when it comes to it. So I was listening to them record the first couple episodes the other day, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so boring to me. I don't have any interest in these topics at all.
Who is on the show?
Madison Quinn and Kevin Keir.
Okay, so this is your own thing. This isn't like a KFGO show or something like that?
Well, what we've decided is we're going to let KFGO use it.
Okay.
Like, because they could use like a homegrown like sports podcast like that. But man alive, my eyes roll back into my head. They started talking about like, in the race for 61, you know, Mickey Mantle and Roger Maris, and whether or not Babe Ruth's record should hold still, you know, and I'm just like, oh my God. I would literally prefer to scrub toilets right now than sit and listen to this.
This is so not the direction I'm starting a new podcast. I'm excited to tell you it's so boring.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, there are people who are going to love it. Like I would
Madison, I think maybe he's joking.
No, I'm not. I think people like your Uncle Paul
Yeah.
will love this.
Oh yeah, okay, got
Like
it.
the type of thing where like he'll listen to 2 episodes and be like, I need to get on this podcast and talk with these guys. And it's not like it's straight up stats, which is miserable to me. It's a mixture of like, oh, these are the players, so there are some stat aspects, but it's a lot of like personal reminiscing about this, that, and the other thing. And if you can imagine a glass of water and you pour water into there from a pitcher that says sports.
But the glass already has water in it.
The glass already has a little bit of water in it because everyone has some sports, you know, like even if you're not a sports fan, you still like the movie Rookie of the Year.
Okay. In this metaphor, water means sports.
Water is sports.
Water is sports.
You know, water is also life.
Okay.
So,
So you got a little life and a little sports in
right.
you.
But I mean like life, because like the water gives you life.
Right.
And life has nothing to do with sports except for you need to be alive to be able to watch and take in sports.
So you're going to pour sports into your sports.
Into my glass. My glass is
that has a third full of sports.
Sports life.
Sports life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. So we're now.
Then what is
would
the
you like me
rest
to
of the
sketch
glass?
this out so that we can see it?
I'm just making sure that I am following.
There is no Sunny Delight in the cup whatsoever.
Okay.
Even though they like you to think that you should have Sunny Delight with sports. But that's not true because after you work up a real sweat and a thirst, last thing you want is to drink something that's kind of like orange
And
juice.
can I see through the glass? Like, is it a frosted
Yes.
Batman Returns McDonald's glass?
Yes, it absolutely is. So now we're on the same page.
Okay.
So the average person drinks from this glass enough that it never overflows. So they're essentially taking in enough sports into their body that their
The other
glass never fills up and flows over.
So the glass is not their body. That's not what's in them. The glass is what they carry around, where they keep their sports.
Right. And they also have a glass that says politics, and they have a glass that says neighbors, and they've got a huge, their cupboard is enormous.
Are they walking around with a tray with all these glasses like
sometimes,
a bartender?
sometimes,
Okay.
and sometimes you just have the one glass.
But someone's pouring water into the sports cup that you keep your sports in. And so
Yes.
to make sure it doesn't overflow, you routinely drink the sports
Drink out.
cup.
And some people drink it like to the point where they get the last drop and then they slam it down. They're like,
Yeah.
more.
Right, I would like more sports, please.
Right,
And
and
I would
so-
demand them now in my sports cup of water.
So-
my water sports cup,
But to me,
where sports is water and life.
the sports are constantly spilling over and they're getting on top of the countertop, and the countertop represents my frustration
You're drenched. Your pants are wet with sports.
with sports. And so I am slamming down my movies glass and being like, more movies, please. And inside of my movies glass, there's little tiny notches on there that say Robert Zemeckis, Joe Dante, Steven Spielberg. And so I'm constantly drinking and trying to get more and more and more of these
And this
things.
is while they're talking about the Twins baseball.
Right.
Are they just talking about the Twins baseball? Or are they talking about other baseballs?
They talk about all the baseballs. So the little leagues
Okay.
to the big leagues
Right.
and the medium leagues
Mhm.
in between.
Yep.
The medium leagues. I don't know if there's an extra large league. Maybe there is. And so I got this. They literally, and they stopped using the pitcher that says sports on it.
Okay.
And they opened up a hose
Okay.
that said sports. And so it's just going. And because I'm producing this and I'm locked down to a set of headphones, I can't reach any other cups.
Right. But I mean, just at the last time we recorded, I brought you a present, right?
Yeah.
I brought you a VHS copy of
Right.
Little Giants, right? Which was
Right.
a movie that your dad, who loves sports, right?
He did love sports.
He liked
wasn't
liked
a
him-
fanatic,
liked
but
him way
he-
more than you did.
Right.
If one of you, either
Literally
your dad
a
or,
newborn baby likes sports more than I do because they haven't made up their mind yet.
But that would be a moment, that's a connection point between you and your dad, right? Where your love of movies and his love of sports. And there's lots of those. There's probably a glass of sports movies like Angels in the Outfield and don't know, Cars, maybe some other ones.
Cars?
Yeah, they race.
Mm.
NASCAR is a sport.
I mean, that is more about Americana and saving small town life than it is about sports. But I see where you're coming from.
Right, I
I'm not
mean,
going to be nitpicky.
Right. I mean, maybe I keep those glasses very close together in my tray.
Okay.
Right.
Do you?
I'd appreciate it if I wasn't receiving all of this threatening judgment from you right now,
Right.
because I'm really feeling attacked.
And here's
in
the thing.
moment.
Little Giants, starring Rick Moranis and
Mhm.
Ed O'Neill,
Mhm.
is a great movie. And so when you pour that from the sports pitcher into my sports cup, I can drink that without any problems. But when you're pouring the sports that are just straight sports, and there's no Rick Moranis, and there's no Ed O'Neill, and there's no O'Shea Brothers Chevrolet, and there's no fat kid wearing a Darth Vader helmet instead of wearing a helmet that you'd wear while you play football, and there's no John Madden showing up, and there's no annexation of Puerto Rico play, and there's no pitch to Johnny. Pitch to Johnny. You can't pitch to Johnny. I'm Johnny. And then I start to cry because his dad, who's been neglectful, shows up in the end zone, and she goes, "What do I do now?" She goes, "Run to him." And he fucking runs past all those other like good players from the Cowboys, and he hugs his dad. I can drink that. I'll drink that any day. But I cannot listen to two grown men for an hour talk about stuff that doesn't matter to me
Oh, really?
at all.
Oh, yeah.
Not at all.
How many people do you think have had that thought while listening to the show?
So many. And you know what? If your JJ Meets World cup is overflowing on a regular basis, turn us off. You turn on NPR.
Well, no, leave the-
Maybe you want to listen to Todd Rundgren today.
Keep the downloads happening, but like you don't have to listen. That's
Yeah,
fine.
no. Just in fact,
Just keep the RSS
would
feeds
people
going.
please do this? Grab the phone you're nearest to that's not yours. Maybe it's your spouse's. Maybe it's a parent.
Yeah.
Maybe it's your child.
Could it be a customer and you're checking out
Yeah.
their food?
Go to Spotify and click subscribe. And then I want you to go to iTunes and hit subscribe.
Which I think this is called Apple Podcast now, I think.
Oh, is that what it is? Just
Something.
Apple Podcast.
Yeah.
Go to, I know we're on Xbox.
Yep. We're on YouTube.
We're on YouTube. Just do a once around the kitchen subscribe, and then you don't have to worry about it. And don't tell them.
Nope.
They don't need to know. It could be a happy surprise for them.
They probably will forget that they even have something for podcasts on their phone.
By the way, it's time to bring up another one of our sponsors, and it's Aunt Mabel's Pure Maple Butter. Have you ever thought of the delicious taste of maple syrup and the life-giving essence of delicious yellow butter? Well, Aunt Mabel's put them together for you for the first time ever into maple butter. She takes only the finest and oldest of trees and cuts them right down to stumps. She takes the tree that's left and puts it through a very refined process called extreme milling. And she extracts the delicious maple syrup, which she then churns into butter by hand. Because she's literally putting her hand and smashing it against the bottom of the barrel over and over until it becomes a thick, delightful, brownish, caramel-colored butter. Perfect for things like pancakes, sweet potatoes, muffins, blueberry muffins, sausages, biscuits. Aunt Mabel's Pure Maple Butter. Available right now at Costco.
When I was buying your Dr. Pepper and my Pepsi, and
What are you talking about? You didn't buy me a Dr.
or
Pepper.
your Diet Coke.
Why are you lying to the people?
I'm not lying.
He bought me a
Diet Coke.
He did not buy me a Dr. Pepper. He
What?
bought me a Diet Coke.
When I bought you your Diet Coke, and
Thank you, by the way, for this,
You're
Diet Coke.
welcome. And it's because Mike Schultz is the Dr. Pepper guy. You're the Diet Coke guy. So you're the two people who I associate with very specific sodas. But when I was buying you your Diet Coke and my Pepsi,
Which, by the
And-
way, was the clerk like, what the hell?
and our Reese's peanut butter cups,
Mhm.
which have you eaten a single one yet?
No. And there's a specific reason why. I'm going to have to bend over to get it, and I'm worried that I'm going
You
to
want
make
me
like
to- I'll push it over
I'll
the
make
table.
a sound like when I bend over to get it, like that'll be like,
You just minutes ago talked about the length of your balls.
yeah.
Okay.
So?
Moving on. Their credit card machines, all of them weren't working.
Oh, no.
Right. So the lady was like, I'm really sorry, guys. It's cash only. I've called IT. I wasn't upset. This stuff happens, whatever. Like, she doesn't know what she's doing. And see, no one heard this at all. No one heard it. You're safe. You're in a safe place, JJ.
Okay.
Have you ever had one of those moments, though, where you wish I could have turned this one moment into like a surrealist short film?
Yes.
Because when I went up to the counter to pay for your Diet Coke and my Pepsi and our Reese's peanut butter cups, and I gave her a $20 bill that I just gotten from the ATM since the cards weren't working. And then she turned to the screen of her computer to ring this up. And for the next minute and a half, I watched her face silently while she clearly went on some kind of an emotional journey through what this computer was putting her through, because I saw every emotion come out within a minute and 30 seconds from this lady. And at the end, it was relief it was catharsis. It was, oh my God, like this lady went on an odyssey with this machine.
Was it that
I never
didn't
got
know
an
how to make
explanation.
change?
I never got an explanation. That's why I was so fascinated by it, because I was like, what is she seeing right now? What things are going through her head? And I never got an answer. I just got my change.
Hold on for a second.
That sounds way worse than you
Does
bending
it
over
really?
to get.
Sometimes I like to suck the peanut butter out of the middle. And so, okay.
I pop them. I just pop them like the whole thing in.
Why don't you just swallow the whole thing whole?
I don't swallow it whole. I want the explosion in my mouth.
The thing about a Reese's peanut butter cup I like is that my mouth is so warm that it instantly starts to melt it.
I do think they can come up with a better technology than the wax paper that it sits in. Because there's always, dead soldiers left behind. There's always pieces of chocolate and peanut butter that go away with it that you don't get to eat.
If I wasn't in front of another human being, I'd scrape that off with my front teeth.
See, you're someone who drinks the milk out of the cereal bowl afterwards, aren't you? I do not. I think that's disgusting.
What?
I cannot. No, I don't do it. I think for some reason it bothers me. I think it's gross.
I was recently asked if you had to shart, which is a poop and a fart at the same time.
Really? Oh, thank you for clarifying.
Would you rather shart in a pool or on a plane? And I said, what do you think?
Pool.
That's what I said.
Yeah, pool.
Because the absolute worst case scenario, you drain the pool and then they fill it again, right?
Right.
Worst case scenario on a plane, they make an emergency landing because people can't stand the smell. And this was the logic of the people who said plane. Well, you could possibly get away with it on a plane. And I said,
but
no
you
way.
Sharted, so there's shit in your pants.
Right.
So you are carrying it with you everywhere you go. If you're in a pool, you can leave that shit behind you.
And here's the thing. When have you ever been at a pool where you're like, I have no other clothing options?
Right. And it's not like that one moment of you sharding is probably the most feces that has been in that pool that day. Let's be honest. Right? Pools are filthy. That's why we fill them with chlorine.
Right.
Yeah.
Because we want to kill all the fecal matter, which is made famous in the movie Caddyshack.
I wouldn't, growing up, I always thought it was neat when I'd go to a house that had a pool.
Mm-hmm.
But I would never, I don't think, want to own one, a house with a pool.
It's funny you mention that because my sister just bought a house with a pool and I
Really?
just went over and used it this last week and it was awesome.
Really? I don't know. I don't think I'd like it. I think it would be, I'd be like, I could use this for grass that bunnies could be on or dogs could run around on or something. But also there's the maintenance. And there's also the chance that children drown in it.
See, I think it's funny that you say like you wouldn't like the maintenance because you've got more fish tanks than any other person I've ever known.
I have a single fish tank.
Yeah, but let's be honest. Since you were of age to have fish tanks, how many fish tanks have you had?
Too many. And guess what I learned? The maintenance sucks.
Right, but I'm just saying, like,
Therefore,
you're a man who's
I am
already.
taking that lesson forward with me into the future.
Did I see you were selling a fish tank recently?
I did. I got rid of one of the ones because I only had 2 left. I just upgraded to a 75 gallon because they were on sale at Petco, and that was the perfect size that I needed. I don't think I should ever need to get a larger one than that for the size of fish that I have. And then I had an old 40 gallon just in storage that was just sitting there, and I knew I wasn't going to use it again, so I sold that on Facebook Marketplace.
I've helped Tucker move a lot of times.
Mhm.
And the worst smelling of all the times I helped you move is I drove your car to your new place, and you had put the fish tanks in the back of your car, and so you're like, JJ, you just need to drive the car because you gotta be safe while you drive. And I'm like, no problem. And they were drained, but they smelled like drained fish tanks.
Yep.
And it was just cold enough where you really didn't want to have like the windows down at that time. And
You're a good friend.
it stunk so bad.
Which is why I got you that Diet Coke.
I know.
'Cause I wanted to say thank you for helping me move that one time.
To be quite honest, I've made Tucker do a lot of stuff too in our friendship that really make you go like, God, you guys really test each other.
Tucker, just take a picture of it. Just take a picture of it.
Somebody asked me the other day, they're like, why are you and Tucker good friends? And I said, I'll tell you why. Tucker summed it up perfectly on a road trip we took to Kentucky once, which is we don't need to talk to each other. We can just be in each other's orbit and be fine. And that's the same thing. Is there's no shame in ask. If I had to, let's say the situation is I sharted on a plane. I know that I could look over at Tucker and be like, I pooped my pants on the plane. I'm going to need to borrow your underpants.
I'd be like, I got you, fam. We'll figure this out. Don't worry about it.
You're like, I'll get up and I'll go take off my underpants in the bathroom and bring them to you.
Or, better idea, Billy Madison style. I would just shart my pants then too. And then I would be like, hey, now we're both. And then when someone's like, did someone shart their pants? I'd be like, I'll be the first one to call attention. I'd be like, I did. That was me. Because sharting your pants is the coolest. And then everyone else in the plane would shart their pants.
Right. I like that.
That might be a better solution.
I appreciate that with our friendship. Yeah. Let me ask you this question because it's kind of been weighing on my mind a lot lately. Okay. There are a lot of places you can go and eat with big groups of people, but there's really very few places you want to go and eat by yourself.
Gesundheit. Gesundheit.
And there's no harm in eating by yourself anywhere. I've eaten at restaurants, both local and chain, by myself before. But what would you consider some of the worst places to go if you were to eat by yourself?
Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh, that's a good choice. Now, are you thinking because
Especially if you look like us?
Yeah, right. You're a man who's almost 40 eating by himself at a children's pizza parlor?
And like, you're not even on your phone. You're just scanning the room.
Yeah, you're looking. You're like, oh, that kid's pretty good at skee ball.
Getting up and dancing every time the animatronics are out.
You know, I think they're retiring those.
I think those are gone now, aren't they?
Which is real sad.
Yeah.
That's an excellent. My choice is going to be Olive Garden because when you're there, you're family, and you don't want to be the family member no one wants to hang out with.
I think Olive Garden makes sense because, I mean, cheap eating is endless breadsticks. You can get some cheap meals at Olive Garden.
I mean, but I'm not saying that you're eating there because of a budgetary thing or that you have to share. I'm just saying like...
Or the vibe is wrong that you would be by yourself versus like, say, a deli, or a coffee shop.
Right.
Coffee shop makes total sense. You'd be by yourself.
If you think of like a dingy bar, like a tavern, you could go eat at a tavern by yourself, no sweat. Because you could have maybe an old newspaper that you're reading. You could be like looking at other people.
And you like Kobe, someplace with a hibachi grill, where you're the one person sitting at the table and asking them to shoot
hey, me now, shrimp me up. I'm ready to be shrimp.
This guy's back again. It's Wednesday, third time this week.
Oh my God, this guy is the worst. And the reason I think about this, my sister, who's very sweet and is one of the absolute most loyal hearts of anybody I've ever met, and is also can be like stone. My sister is someone who is so incredibly funny, but it's because she cuts so deep so fast and stuff. When I lived in Chicago, she hated she'd be like, what'd you do tonight? And I said, oh, well, I went to have dinner at PJ Clark's. I went to a movie, and she goes, who'd you go with? And I'm like, oh, I just went by myself, went after class. And she'd be like, don't tell me that you're eating, because she didn't like that. She didn't like that idea. And the other day, I saw someone eating by themselves, and I thought, is this one of those moments where I'm supposed to get up and go and ask, Would you like to join our table?
I would be like, fuck off, dude. No, that is the worst thing. That would ruin my meal.
See, my opening was
Either
gonna,
way, if I'm either the person being approached or I'm at your table, like, oh, I thought I was here to eat with JJ, but now with strangers joining us.
Yeah, but do you remember that time that we?
You know who does that shit is Sarah Shawn.
Does she really?
Well, like, wouldn't be people that she didn't know, but people that I didn't know. Be like, hey, Tucker, do you want to grab lunch today? Sure. Show up. Hey, I brought these 2 coworkers of mine. I'm like, oh, damn it.
Great.
Great. Now I gotta
Fantastic.
meet some new people.
Do you remember when we met that girl who was traveling by
Yep.
train,
Yeah,
and
we've
then
talked
we
about
brought
that
her
here a few
back to my house and we had pizza
Yeah, and watch Sopranos.
and watched Sopranos?
Mhm.
This is the type of thing like that. Like I didn't want that woman to have her Fargo experience and be like, well, I ate at a Subway on Broadway, which is closed now, and then I got back on the train, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want that to be a career experience.
Mhm.
Now, that being said, if someone came and approached me like, would you like to join me and my friends at this table? I would say no. And this is why. I saw a movie once called Hostel. And the idea is that they hunt and torture human beings, but they pick you up at a hostel. And it was just like that. They're like, hey, come with us for party. Good time. You like it. And then they drug you. And then that's how you end up being tortured by Eli Roth.
Do you know where my favorite place to be alone is?
Where?
Airports.
Oh, yeah.
I love airport travel where I'm not having to wait for the group or follow the group or do what the group is doing. I totally understand those dads at the airport who just walk ahead of the family and goes, I'm getting to the gate and you all can catch up at some point, but I'm not doing all this, right? I like setting my own pace. I love having the earphones in and the hoodie up. And I just feel like a traveler in the day or night with like all the millions of other people traveling. I love that.
I think
Love that feeling.
That they should do stuff with airport gates like this. Have 5 really comfy chairs at the gate. First come, first serve. Whoever gets here first can sit here in the comfiest chair and you'll be fine. Because it would make people rush to the gate and not stop at McDonald's and then hold up your flight. It would just force them to get there.
Yeah.
There's, our episode that we talked about air travel. I don't know if you've traveled since we had that conversation, because that was like during the pandemic where we talked about the things we missed.
When Mama Luke passed away, I flew. So I flew down to Kentucky earlier this year.
Okay.
That was after that conversation,
Yeah.
I believe. Yep.
It is the worst right now. Air travel right now is at its absolute worst, and there's canceled flights all the time.
And it's not like it was already awesome to begin with.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, well, it was better than traveling by bus. I don't know if that's true necessarily. At least on a bus, they're like, we're going to make a pit stop. Who wants candy?
When I schedule a flight, it's always I'm always looking for something early afternoon for me. That's the flight. Maybe late morning, 10:30, 11, maybe.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm looking for early afternoon flight. The day is ruined no matter what time I'm flying. I might as well have a good chance getting a full night's sleep the night before, not have to get up at 4 a.m. to make an early 6 a.m. flight. That murders me. I hate that feeling. I hate that feeling of getting out of your warm and comfy bed to put on a jacket and grab your suitcase because you got to go get us on a 6 a.m. flight. It's just one of the worst feelings I've ever felt. I hate it so much. So like, I want to fly there, and I don't care if I get there late that night. I'm going to crash and when I get into bed, no matter what, and just sleep in the next day and then do what I got to do.
There's a restaurant, or there used to be a restaurant called the Barnstormer, which is a term for a type of like plane. And the Barnstormer was the restaurant at Hector International Airport. And when I worked at Take Two Video, we had a VHS to DVD dubbing service. So you could bring your old home movies and we dub them. This guy shows up one day, older guy, and he's like, I need to get this tape dubbed. And I was like, okay. So I take it back. I start dubbing the tape, tell him like you can pick it up in 3 days. And it shows on a TV where it's dubbing. This was so inappropriate. I brought it to my manager's attention and we called the cops.
Oh.
Like at what we were seeing on this thing. And so it turns out that this was legal, but like very, like it made me uncomfortable, right? Like what we were doing. So flash forward a year later, and this guy comes up to me at the Barnstormer and he's like, hey, remember me? You made that DVD for me. And I was like, oh, yeah. And he's like, hey, listen, I got like a bunch more, but the video store closed down. How do I go to like get these things turned? Do you do that? And so I was like, no, I really don't. He's like, well, hold on. So he was a cook there, and so he went and he made me mozzarella sticks and brought them, and then sat down at our table. And
This is the most horrific story I've heard.
Right. And so I was like, don't eat these mozzarella sticks. Don't touch these mozzarella sticks. And this guy's got no reason to understand that I have already called the police about what he's got going on. And so he's like, you don't want these? Don't want these? I'll wrap them up. And so he wrapped up the mozzarella sticks, and then I had to walk through security because he pretty much was like at the host stand, like waving at me, like watching me go through security. And so we get to the other side, and I'm with a group of like 5 people. And as soon as we get through security, they all do the, what is going on? What just happened? Well, who is that man? Who is that crazy man? And I've never seen him since.
Whew, good.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end this podcast.
Sounds good to me.
With just a horrific story about one of the many times I've met someone who I feel should be on an FBI watch list.
That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information.
So the thing that no one really talks about is, what if there is a hot tub on the plane? Would you rather shart when you're in your seat or when you're in the hot tub? And here's the answer. Neither. You'd rather shart in the cockpit.